the privilege today of introducing you to Thomas Frey. We got to listen to Thomas talk a little bit last night about some of his thoughts, the concepts of futurism and the focus on the future, and I think that you're going to be in for a real treat. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Thomas. Thomas worked at IBM. He was an engineer there and has played a part in starting 17 different businesses himself, and has also assisted hundreds of others in their development. He is the founder of the DaVinci Institute, and he truly travels the globe speaking about futurism. And I think that we're going to learn a lot more about that today. And I could go on, I have a page of notes about it, but I think it's better to just bring him up and let's dig into this. So I'd like to introduce to you all Thomas Frey.
All right, thank you for having me here today. This is a tremendous honor. And also one of my favorite topics is economic development and how do we revitalize our economy, because lots of things are shifting and changing. All right, good. Now this is a very visual presentation, so if you don't see the screen, I encourage you to move your chairs around and shift until you get a good view, because we have lots of images that convey lots of information here. At the DaVinci Institute that I run, we have a consulting arm called the Visionary, and we use certain processes for helping expand people's thinking, and I'll step you through some of those processes here today. But in the past, we created great companies through collective intelligence. We put a lot of smart people in the same room together, and so we built great companies through proximity. Today, we still choose where we want to live, where we want to work, where we want to conduct business based on proximity to key assets. Some of those assets are, we want to live close to where we work, we want to be close to friends and family, maybe proximity to the airport. We care a lot about the weather, the crime rate in the area. Each of these plays a different role in our lives, so each of these have different importance to us. So proximity still matters today, but it matters differently. The sense of place matters differently than it did. We are an increasingly mobile society, and today we have many ways to compensate for physical proximity, and tomorrow we're going to have even more. So while we can go into a telepresence room and feel like we're in the same room as somebody that's 1,000 miles away, it's still not the same as being there in person. Now tomorrow, we're going to be striking up water cooler conversations with people 1,000 miles away, and it'll be rather easy to do these things. So this idea of proximity continues to shift and change. But we're a very backward-looking society. We're backward-looking because it's just human nature. See, we've all personally experienced the past. As we look around us, we see evidence of the past all around us. All information that we come into contact with is essentially history. So the past is very knowable, and yet we're going to be spending the rest of our lives in the future. So it's almost as if we're walking backwards into the future. My job as a futurist is to help turn people around, to give them some idea of what the future might hold. So how does the future get created? Well, the future gets created in the minds of everybody around us. We all participate in creating the future. In fact, people make decisions today based on their understanding of what the future holds. So I use this phrase a lot: the future creates the present. Now this is just the opposite of what most people think. Most people think that what we're doing today is going to create the future, but from a little different perspective, it's these images of the future that we hold in our head that determine our actions today. So if we change somebody's vision of the future, we change the way they make decisions today. So that's my promise to you. Before you leave here, I'm going to change your perspective on the future, and as a result, you're going to walk out of here making different decisions. If I don't do that, please hold my feet to the fire. Now, also as a futurist, I get asked a lot if I have a crystal ball. And yes, I do have a crystal ball, and it was sitting around at home. And my wife says, why don't you just take this to the office? It's just collecting dust. So reluctantly, I took my crystal ball and I put it in the car. I was driving it to the office. I was no more than about 4 or 5 minutes down the road, and I looked over and I saw that my crystal ball had started a fire on the seat next to me. See, a crystal ball is a giant lens. Sun shining in. This is Boy Scouts 101. I should have known better. Luckily, I was able to put out the fire and it didn't cause any serious damage. But then I had this revelation, and obviously this revelation came from my crystal ball. And the revelation was that the newspaper headlines the next day were going to say, "Futurist killed by his own crystal ball." And he didn't see it coming. Now, this is like the ultimate insult for futurists. So that's my one disclaimer. I don't see everything, but I spent a lot of time working at it. Larry Page, the CEO of Google, now Alphabet, the main reasons companies fail is because they miss the future. I happen to agree with this. A lot of companies getting blindsided by the future, things hitting them from left field. I'm going to start off with a technology you don't hear much about, atmospheric water harvesters. This is a company using fog nets, and they're sucking moisture out of the air. There's an MIT project down in Peru, also sucking moisture out of the air. A French designer came along and figured out how to set up these towers called Orca water towers in little villages in Africa, and they're able to get around 25 gallons a day of water sucked out of the air. Now this dramatically changes the lives of young girls in Africa because they're the ones that have to haul all the water for the villages. We've even taught them how a group of 4 people can build one of these towers in a week. Another French designer came up with this idea of using windmills to suck water out of the air. Now they're able to get around 125 gallons a day off of a windmill, and they're testing these out in Abu Dhabi. Again, it depends on the humidity levels. Now, this idea of being able to use our atmosphere as a conduit for water, in the past we've always been thinking about using our streams and our lakes and our groundwater, but why not use our atmosphere? Another gentleman, Edward Liniger, figured out how to use solar-powered units to suck moisture out of the air to irrigate all the plants nearby. Now, the whole time all this work was going on, the holy grail for this was the idea of coming up with a self-filling water bottle. Can we actually create a water bottle that fills itself? And then just a few months ago, this company, Fontes, came up with one that fits on a bicycle. And as you're riding the bicycle along, it sucks moisture through this condenser, and it fills the water bottle. I'm going to play you a short video here on this. Did we get the sound working on this?
The lack of safe drinking water in many areas. Fresh water is something we constantly take for granted. Of the over 7 billion people on Earth, 783 million don't have access to clean water. Even in the United States, areas like Flint, Michigan are struggling with water contamination. It's hoped that designs like the Fontes can, in some small way, help to combat these statistics. But pulling water out of the air is a slow process. The Fontes prototype produces about 17 ounces of water an hour. That's great for cyclists, but it's not going to solve a water crisis. The bottle's prototype doesn't filter out air pollution either, and that's something you'll need to do to truly provide access to clean water. Still, it's a starting point. A crowdfunding campaign is supposed to launch soon.
So anyway, I just wanted to show you that short clip. It's not going to solve all the problems, and he said it doesn't take all the pollution out of the water, but it's an interesting starting point. As William Gibson says, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So this is a technology I call a catalytic innovation. Now, catalytic innovation is different than a disruptive innovation. A disrupting innovation disrupts existing industry. It causes companies to have to do more with less. Catalytic innovation creates entire new companies, entire new industries. So examples of the past of catalytic innovations, things like electricity, water, or automobiles, airplanes, telephone, photographs, all of these went on to create multi-billion-dollar, even trillion-dollar industries. But here's the thing. Every industry is a bell curve. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every company is a bell curve. Every job is a bell curve. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's right, all industries will eventually end. 1,000 years from now, every industry we have here in the United States today will have come and gone and been replaced several times. The other important thing to understand is that most industries today happen to be in the second half of the bell curve, the ones that are making the most money. They're the ones that are on the decline, or constantly having to do more with less. So let me use this example here of peak steel. Now, the peak of the steel industry is projected to be around 2024. Now, the peak demand for steel will be reached around 2024, give or take a few years. And then as we develop synthetic materials, the overall demand for steel will start to decline. Now, the peak employment in the steel industry was actually in the 1980s. The 1980s, we had 3 times as many people working in the steel industry in the US as we do today, but we're still producing far more steel. So the peak employment in an industry is actually a lead indicator as to sometime in the future, the overall demand for that goods or service will start to decline. I get quoted all over the world on this prediction I made a few months back that by 2030, over 2 billion jobs are going to disappear. I show up on TV, newspapers, magazines, all over the world. And when I made this prediction, it wasn't intended to be a doom or gloom statement. It wasn't intended to say we're going to have 2 billion people unemployed. It was intended to say that we're going to have to create jobs at a faster rate than ever before. This is a wake-up call. We haven't created the systems for creating these new jobs just yet. This is what I refer to as the level problem. Now, most of us have this tool in our garage somewhere. We use levels for doing carpentry work, for hanging pictures on the wall. But once we download a level app on our smartphone, then a lot of us no longer need to buy that tool. That means we don't have to make nearly as many aluminum frames. We don't have to make the glass bulbs for it. We don't have to have the people assembling it, the shipping and the receiving, the retail stores that are handling it. Every time we download a mobile app, we're eliminating a piece of a job. It's a very, very tiny piece of a job. But when we're downloading billions upon billions of mobile apps, it's starting to add up. Oxford researchers actually went through and they looked at 700 different jobs, and they concluded that machines are going to take over 47% of today's jobs. Coincidentally, this works out to about 2 billion. So thank you, Oxford. And it's not just the low-level jobs. Companies like Uber and Airbnb have figured out how to use software to eliminate middle management jobs. So as an example, in the taxi world, you had middle managers that were responsible for logistics, for equipment, for the taxi drivers. They had all kinds of middle management people. All of that has been, an entire layer of management has been wiped out and been replaced with software. In 2015, just last year, crowdfunding started to account for more funding than venture capital. This is an interesting turning point here. A lot of times I talk about there's no safe industries. And FinTech, which is the financial technology space, is one that's being particularly hit on and kind of torn apart. There are currently over 8,000 startups in the FinTech space, and last year they received over $12 billion in VC money. So we're going to see lots of transitions happening in this space. So we're talking about the coming FinTech wars here. So within 5 years, mobile devices will replace credit cards, debit cards, wallets, lenders, brokers, insurance agents, money transfers abroad. Or will they? So a quick show of hands here. How many of you have made a payment with your smartphone? All right, quite a few. How many of you have made a payment with a SmartWatch? All right, we have a couple here. All right, that's good. And the key question is what part of this will still be controlled by the current banking industry that we have today? A lot of this stuff is changing here. I'd like to take just a couple minutes and explain how the driverless car world is going to shift and make wholesale changes in our community. I wrote a recent column, and the title of the column is 128 Things That Will Disappear During the Driverless Car Era. And I like to emphasize that this will not happen instantly. It will happen over the next 2 to 3 decades. So 10 years from now, most of you will be able to walk out your front door, you pull out your smartphone and punch in, I want to go to work, I want to go shopping, I want to go to school. A driverless vehicle will come pick you up, take you to where you want to go, and from there it will pick somebody else up and take them to where they want to go, and so on. This is what's referred to as on-demand transportation. Now, once this is readily available, then we shift our thinking from this just in case mindset, I have a car in my garage just in case I need to go somewhere, to this just in time model. I can summon a vehicle at any time that I need it. That's a radical shift in thinking. So these cars are going to be very smart. And we've actually had a speaker a couple nights ago at the DaVinci Institute. He calculated out that the cost is going to be around 28 cents a mile if we summon a vehicle like this to take us somewhere. 28 cents a mile is actually pretty cheap. And if I don't have to pay insurance and I don't have to make car payments, I don't think I need to own a car then. So some of the jobs that are disappearing, all the taxi drivers, Uber drivers, delivery jobs, courier jobs, truck drivers, rental cars, all of these start going away. So taxis, gone. Car ownership, gone. Lots of auto sales, account managers, auto auctions, insurance. Car insurance going to start dwindling. And I'm going to emphasize again that all of these things do not go completely away, but they become a fraction of what they are today. So car dealerships, most customer-facing car dealerships, gone. Even crash test dummies, all of that's gone. Gas station, car washes, oil change businesses, truck shops, brake shops, emission testing, all of these things gone. Parking lots, parking garages, parking meters, handicap parking, all of that's gone. All these crazy devices gone. Roadside assistance, body shops, tow trucks, I mean, things will still need to get repaired and fixed, but it won't be customer facing. Most of it won't. So all these traffic jams on highways gone. So we're in for a radical shift that will unfold over the next 2 to 3 decades here. Now there's 30 car companies that are currently playing in this space. Volvo just announced that their goal is by 2020 to be producing the first death-proof car. I think that's admirable. I don't know if I want to buy a Volvo yet, but maybe. It also eliminates all the human variables. Now, there's lots of things that go wrong in cars because we're a very distracted generation here. All the texting and have kids in the car, curling your hair and shaving in the car, all of these things. We eliminate over 31,000 traffic deaths, 5 million injuries every year in cars. And we create added freedom for the seniors, handicapped people, people without licenses. The baby boom generation is actually going to start demanding driverless cars. They don't want to lose their freedom as they get older. This is a game changer. And just so you know, this is what an intersection will look like in a driverless car era. Kind of looks like India right now. So as my favorite physicist, Max Planck, likes to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Every year I go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and a friend of mine goes there as well. This is a major event. Lots of new products get introduced there. But every year, he always says the same thing. He always comes back and says, yeah, but there was nothing new. And I always look at him kind of dumbfounded saying, really? Did you go to the same show that I did? But in a lot of respects, he's right, because every year, like they have thousands of televisions there, and every year the TV sets are a little bigger, a little thinner, more curved, slightly better screens, better dynamic range, they have better battery life, more downloadable apps. All of these things get built into the TV sets. And so we're seeing a lot of incremental changes. But if you compare televisions today to 15 years ago, you'll see just a tremendous difference. So this is why I often say that the iterators are more valuable than the innovators. Now these engineers that are making these minor improvements along the way, while we might not think they're all that significant, when you put them all together, it makes a huge difference over time. So every time we have radically new innovation, something radically new introduced into the marketplace, we have to work our way through the crappy stages before we actually get to something that's really good. Now, I want to mention something about exponential growth changes here, because we're moving into this digital era, and the digital era, everything starts moving much faster. So as an example, solar power output has started to reliably double every 2 years. Now, even though solar energy in the world only amounts to 2% of the total energy produced in the world today, just 12 years from now, that 2% will grow to the point where that's the majority of the power that's being produced in the world. If this continues through an exponential growth curve, solar is going to be one of the biggest industries on the planet within the next 12 years. So as we move from a traditional physical world to more of a digital world, and keep in mind we're building a digital infrastructure over everything physical in the world, we're transitioning from physical cars to digital cars. And the changes start happening exponentially faster. So as an example, if you own a Tesla car today, every Tesla car, once a month, you get a new download for that car. And so part of their sales pitch for that car is after a year, it's going to be a substantially better car because it made constant improvement. Every month you get a new download for it. So we're transitioning from physical homes to smart homes. We're transitioning from physical cities to smart cities. All of these things, we're going to start seeing the changes happening incrementally faster. I'm going to give you some perspective on the scalability. It took McDonald's 23 years to sell 1 billion hamburgers. It took Facebook 8.5 years to reach 1 billion users. It took Uber 5.5 years to reach 1 billion rides. And Uber has a competitor in China called Didi Kuwati that just took them 11 months to reach 1 billion rides in China. Now this is not the record though. This guy, everybody's favorite, yeah. In 2012, he was the first guy to break the 1 billion download level on YouTube. And he still holds the record. He has over 2.5 billion downloads right now. But there's a total of 24 YouTube stars now that have broken through the 1 billion view level, with the record being set by Adele doing it in just 87 days. This is pretty remarkable. Now this has just happened in the last 4 years. Now we never had this perspective before because this idea of reaching 1 billion downloads on anything just seemed inconceivable just a few years ago. See, there's increased focus on scalability. Now this is a lot of really tiny print here, but the overall thing you can see is the flow over just the last 4 years, and this is what's referred to as the unicorn companies, the companies that have a valuation of over $1 billion. And last year we had 42 unicorn companies come into play. And so are we going to have more than that this year? Probably, although the valuations are going up and down a lot. So on one hand, we're eliminating lots of jobs, but on the other hand, we're freeing up human capital. So just because our jobs are going to disappear doesn't mean we've run out of work to do. I mean, that's fairly ludicrous to say, you know, we've run out of work to do in the world. Yeah, sorry, there's nothing left to do. Yeah, that's rather silly. But having jobs for all the work that needs to be done, that's a whole different equation. And we're going to have some gaps there, so we're going to have problems that we have to work through. Now, because of this, I've created, there's a lot of people out there that think we're going to run out of work. I still think that's silly. So I've created these 3 laws of exponential capabilities. And now, all of this automation, all of this technology is giving us additional capabilities. And so I'll just go through these quickly here. With automation, every exponential decrease in effort creates an equal and opposite exponential increase in capabilities. So once something is easier to do, we just do more of it. I'll give you a quick explanation here. In 1850, the average transportation speed in the US was 4 miles an hour. By 1900, it rose to 8 miles an hour. We started seeing a few cars, a few more trains. By 1950, it jumped up to 24 miles an hour. It actually tripled at 50 years. And then by 2000, because so many people are flying, we actually reached 75 miles an hour. And then by 2050, we're going to reach somewhere around 225 miles per hour. Over a lifetime, and I'll just back up here, over a lifetime, 73,000 miles, that's what an average person in 1850 would cover in their entire lifetime. Now in 2050, the average person is 7.3 million miles. So that's a 100-fold increase in 200 years. That's a tremendous difference in just those few generations. Law number 2, as we raise the bar for our achievements, we also reset the norm for our expectations. And today's significant accomplishments become more common, mega accomplishments will take their place. So essentially, all of this technology is giving us more capabilities, so we just need to set our sights higher. We need to look for the bigger projects to take on. We can now think faster, know faster, and do faster than ever before in history. So where is our next generation jobs going to come from? The answer is future industries. The Kauffman Foundation says it very well. Over the past 30 years, companies less than 5 years old accounted for nearly 100% of all the net job growth in the US. So you're going to be really better off growing your own jobs here. So I'll talk quickly about 7 future industries here and give you some perspective on where all that's going. The Internet of Things. To give you some history on that, it was somewhere between 2008 and 2009 that the company Cisco actually noticed that the number of devices connected to the internet started to exceed the population of people on Earth. So 6.8 billion people on Earth at that time, 6.8 billion devices. So now the projection are that we're going to reach 50 billion things by 2020. So we're always asking, what are all these things? At the same time, we're introducing more sensors into the mainstream consciousness, if you will. And 3 years ago, Fairchild Semiconductor held an event called the Trillion Sensor Summit out in San Francisco. And they were charged with putting together a roadmap as to how long it would be before we reach 1 trillion sensors in the world. They concluded that we will reach 1 trillion sensors somewhere between 2022 and 2024, and that by 2036 we will have 100 trillion sensors in the world. So this is just a stick-on patch that you can put on, but it has tons of sensors built into it. And so we can start monitoring all the functions in our body. So what this means is with trillions of sensors in the world is that they've become very tiny, very ubiquitous, very easy to manufacture. We can start embedding them in paint that we coat our walls with. We start painting the sides of our cars with them. We put them in our clothing. Sensors are giving us information from every surface around us. Every smartphone, as an example, when they first came out in 2007, had 5 sensors in it. Today, smartphones have on average 19 sensors. So in just 12 years, that means smartphones are doubling the number of sensors every 4 years. So in just 12 years, we'll have 160 sensors in every smartphone. And then you multiply that out times roughly 3 billion smartphones a year expected to be produced 12 years from now. And suddenly we have 480 billion sensors just in smartphones alone. As a result of all of this, innovation is being parsed into far smaller pieces, which enables us, each of us, to participate in what's going on. You know, the idea of creating a mobile apps aren't all that hard to create anymore. A lot of us can create mobile apps in just a few hours now. So that's a piece of innovation that in the past, that was a significant accomplishment to do something like that. It's gotten much easier, and so we can all participate because things have gotten smaller. I'm going to give you some examples of kind of Internet of Things devices. And there's this category that we refer to as enchanted objects because they have kind of magical properties to them. And so I'll just mention a few of them here. The first one is the Amazon trash can. This is really cool. It's a trash can. When you throw away a product in it, it scans the product and then reorders it from Amazon. You know, Amazon really likes its product. The MemoMe Smart Mirror, this is really cool. Once you're trying on clothes, it remembers the last outfit that you wore, and you can compare the different outfits. In fact, you can swipe one dress to the next dress to the next dress. And because it's a smart mirror, it will always make you look better than your friends. Vitality Glow Cap. A lot of us need to take pills at a certain time of the day. This is a pill cap that will remind you to take your pill. Let's say you have to take it at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you don't take it, it starts flashing. If you still don't take it, it'll start chirping. And then it will even start sending you text messages. So this thing is designed to nag you until you take your pills. The biometric coffee maker, this thing's really smart. You get up in the morning, you put your hand on it, it knows exactly how much caffeine you need in your coffee. We think it needs a Jack Daniels switch on it too. The Flying Nixie camera, really cool. It kind of looks like a watch, but then you just unlatch it, turns into a little drone that you throw like a frisbee, and then you can go spy on your neighbors. I mean, how cool is that, huh? The Pinto Feed Pet Feeder, this enables you, while you're feeding your pet remotely, is you can FaceTime your pet and talk to them. So if you have pets at home and you're not FaceTiming them today, then well, shame on you. The 3D printing world is just affecting absolutely everything around us. This is going to touch every one of our lives in thousands of different ways. It's creating this hyper-individualized marketplace. And this is important to understand because this will generate lots of new business ideas. So at the Consumer Electronics Show, one of the first booths I went to last year, they sat me down, they scanned the inside of my ear, and then they proceeded to 3D print earbuds that were perfectly matched for my ears. Now these don't look like much, but I gotta tell you, these are the most comfortable things ever. I can sleep with them on airplanes and leave them in for long periods of time, and they fit perfect. This is radically going to change the hearing aid industry, along with lots of other things too. Last time I was in South Korea, they had me stand in this photo booth, 100 high-res cameras there. They told me to pose, they took my picture, and then they proceeded to 3D print a little statue of me about 8 inches tall. I mean, who doesn't want their own statue? We're rapidly shifting from taking selfies to doing shapies. This is Charles Hull. Charles Hull is the guy who invented the 3D printing world back in the early 1980s. Originally, he started out printing in plastics and resins, but today we're printing in literally thousands of different materials. And some of them rather bizarre. So they figured out how to put wood fibers into these filaments that get fed into these 3D printers, so we can print like smart wood so it looks like real wood, print with macadamia nut shells, printed with used coffee grounds. The most bizarre one is instant tea. I don't know why anybody wants instant tea, anything. But you know, I was thinking, as we were driving in from the airport yesterday, that one product you have a lot of here is you have a lot of leaves. And these leaves are easy to harvest, and if they could get fed in, each tree leaf has its own unique properties. And so material science is going to be a hot area in the future just for 3D printing. That's good, and with all the chemistry majors you have going through the college here, this is a good opportunity. Carnegie Mellon and Disney actually figured out how to 3D print with wool. They can now print teddy bears. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Imagine 10 years from now, you step into a retail store. The first thing they're going to have you do is step into a body scanner, and they're going to scan your entire body. And while you're getting your dimensions, you walk around, you pick out whatever colors, fashions, styles you're interested in, and then they will 3D print perfectly fitting clothing while you wait. And if you think that's so far off, this is 3D printed clothes right here. And we can 3D print clothes with very complicated fashions you can't make with needles and thread.
Graduated from Chicago College of Design.
This is a young lady from Israel that's figured out how to 3D print all this clothes in her house.
Traveling with no luggage? Just print your clothes in the hotel room. Will we soon be able to design, share, and print our own clothes directly from home?
And it's not just our clothes, it's also our shoes. Imagine being able to print shoes that fit perfect every time. I don't know anybody who doesn't have problems with their feet. So having perfectly fitting shoes, I think is like the coolest thing ever. And you're not just printing shoes, you're printing something that matches your personality, because you can go in there and design it. You can make something really cool. Shoe printers already exist. They're not quite ready for prime time, but very soon. Now, contour crafting is a form of 3D printing, only we're printing with fast-drying concrete. Usually fiberglass reinforced, fast-drying concrete. See, they're putting one layer upon another layer upon another layer. Now, as they were developing this technology, there was kind of this race going on to see who could actually 3D print the first house. And to see what they're printing here, they're actually printing a castle. How cool is that, huh? Yeah, but while the competition was going on, there's a group a Dutch group, one in London, one in US, and then out of the woodwork came one in China that actually 3D printed 10 houses in one day, a company called Winsun. Now, these aren't the greatest looking houses in the world, but there's lots of homeless people in China. So, and an average cost of around $5,000 per house. That's what the material costs were. And then just a few months ago, they 3D printed this entire mansion, so 13,000 square foot mansion, and they also 3D printed this 4-story building here. So you think this is going to change the construction industry? This is what people are thinking about. Setting up a rig like this over a construction site and printing one layer upon another layer upon another layer. Now here's the thing, as this technology improves, we're not just printing the structure. We're also printing the wiring in the walls, we're printing the plumbing in the walls, we're printing the cabinets in the kitchen, the toilets in the bathrooms, the sinks. All of these things get printed all at once. And if you get tired of your house, all you have to do is grind it up and reprint it. You don't even have to clean it first. You can just go in there and reprint it. In fact, if your wife gets mad at you, you come home, you might have a whole new house. If you think that's so far off, this is a company, Bed Abrams, out of Slovenia, that's selling house printers for $16,000. So what are you waiting for? And to take this even farther, there's some people that have figured out how to not be constrained by a framework like this. They're actually 3D printing spider bots. So these spider bots then will go over and pick up the material, and then they'll put the material in place and go back and refill with more material. And so very soon we're going to see spider bots and things like this doing huge buildings, post offices, hospitals, baseball stadiums. There might be an interim step here that we actually print the bricks and then put the bricks in place. I want to show you this quick animation here. This is an Australian company called Fast Brick Robotics, and it's quite impressive. Now it's easy to do these things with animations, but this is the actual machine here. This thing is actually in use in Australia, and here's the key thing, it does 1,000 bricks an hour. Is that a game changer? Maybe. Once we're able to 3D print our walls, we no longer have the need for flat walls. Every wall can become an artistic centerpiece. Architects are going to have a heyday with this because they can create free-form structures that we can't build with any of traditional construction methods. Our very definition of what a house is, what a condo is, what an office is going to get redefined as we get these new capabilities. And we're going to be taking on some really big projects in the future, such as floating islands. I just love floating islands. And 3D printing doesn't stop there. It's affecting the food industry as well. NASA had a 3D printed pizza competition last year, because once we're inhabiting planets, the moon and Mars, there's no indigenous food supply there, so how do you create a variety in people's diets? This is one entry in the pizza competition. These are 3D printed hamburgers, 3D printed chickpea snacks. Oh, by the way, I don't know if we've got any 3D printed ketchup yet. Maybe, we might be getting there. Chickpea snacks, 3D printed raviolis, corn chips, sugar cubes. At Consumer Electronics Show, they were getting people's faces scanned in chocolate and printing them in chocolate. I don't know, for some reason, people love to eat their face in chocolate. This is the Smart Biscuit. These are actually 3D printed, so that they actually 3D print these things. They print in the spores and the seeds, and they set them out and let them grow for 5 days, and then you just throw them in your mouth, and voila, delicious. I've never actually tried one, so I don't know how delicious they are, maybe. But it's going to open the doors for lots of creativity, lots of different ideas. If you can imagine all the apples that fall off of an apple tree, lots of these apples go to waste. They're bruised and damaged. But what if you could 3D print a perfect apple? You take that same apple stock and you turn it into a perfect apple every time. Not only is it a perfect apple, you can also eat the stem and the core and the leaf because it's all printed out of the same material. Only you happen to like almond flavoring, so you can add that into it. You have almond flavored apples. You happen to need more vitamin D in your diet, so you can add that in. Every Wednesday you like blue apples, you can have that as well. So would you buy a product if it said that it was naturally grown, completely organic, printed food? Does that sound like an oxymoron? Maybe. And then we get into the bioprinting. This is where it gets a little odd. This guy's printing a human vein for surgery. Professor Lee Cronin out of Glasgow, Scotland, he thinks that we'll be able to soon be able to 3D print all of our pharmaceutical drugs. So if you go to a doctor can prescribe 200 milligrams or 400 milligrams, those are the dosages that you get in your pills. But your ideal dosage for that day might be 148 milligrams or 357 milligrams. We don't have the ability to work with that level of precision today. Now this is the potential for printed pills. This is a Belgian company that already makes a pill printer. It doesn't work like Lee Cronin wants, but it already prints the pills, and it even prints the packaging for the pills as well. This is 3D printed organs. That's a bladder on the top right, kidneys in the middle, and an ear on the bottom there. And I just read the headlines that this biotech company has gotten a permit to try to reactivate the brains of brain dead people using stem cells. Is this getting into kind of the weird world? I like to ask the question of how long before we are able to 3D print a replacement body for myself. Something maybe 18, 20 years old, much more muscular, more hair on his head. So is this the world that we're moving into? I think I'll wear the head with a big smile today. Virtual and augmented reality. This is kind of coming out of the woodwork, and it's becoming very popular. They're using virtual reality as a form of therapy now. people that have been in an accident or in war and battle to kind of compensate for traumatic injuries, and they're still using this as a form of therapy. You can actually jump out of a plane without actually jumping out of a plane. School kids, this is a new type of educational environment. They're going to be able to know what it's like to walk through the streets of 5th century China or to actually hang out with real live dinosaurs. And I love this one here. There's a fan in front and you can get the feel of flying. So what it's like to actually fly, because you got flaps and everything.
What if we could go beyond the screen, where your digital world is blended with your real world? Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
How cool is that? Is that pretty cool? Now, each of these technologies I'm showing you are going to enter our lives in a big way. And the drones, the next one. There's thousands and thousands of uses for drones. This is Amazon's latest delivery drone. I actually don't think there's much the flying delivery business, I think, is going to be a very narrow spectrum. We have lots of problems, like if I can fly something from here to there, where do I put the package? Where is it okay? We haven't created all those systems. Haven't got the navigation systems in place yet. They're not really that durable. Or if FedEx gets into this, they want drones that can deliver 10,000, 20,000 trips in one vehicle. Are we going to have black boxes, privacy rules, even a flying drone bill of rights? All of these things need to be worked on, but it creates opportunity at the same time. Much more likely we're going to have ground-based delivery drones. So this one just sent this lady a text message, told her that the package is coming. So that little R2-D2 drone, yeah, that has great potential. I like that one. We've done some projections. We're estimating that we'll reach 1 billion drones in the world somewhere between 2030 and 2032. Drones are going to be used for places that are hard to access, inspecting the top of windmills, power lines, hazardous areas, doing thermal scans on buildings, structural integrity, monitoring construction projects on the other side of the world, even growing of crops a long ways away, and rescuing dogs. And this is what we all need, the emergency beer drone. I love this one here.
It's pure magic.
This is kind of like a hoverboard.
The magic of flight that has captured our
And I especially like how he lands it here.
Orville and Wilbur Wright. Now unleashed in its simplest form by the imagination and intelligence of this young Canadian inventor.
Right into the water. Yep. The agriculture world's going to buy into this in a big way, scanning fields, applying herbicides and pesticides. Few scans over a field, we know where all the bugs are, where the diseases are, how much fertilizer is needed for different areas of the field, monitoring livestock, emergency rescue drones. Rather than putting people in harm's way, we can send a drone out there. The news stations are going to have drones, and it's going to be a competition to see who can get the live coverage of any incident that's happening in a city. The cities themselves, when a 911 call comes in, the first response is going to be to get eyes on it, to send up a drone to see what's going on. We have the potential to eliminate forest fires completely, having drones flying around that can spot any hotspots in a forest. So rather than waiting for them to turn into a giant blaze, it's much easier to put them out right when you first get started. Call in fire extinguisher drones. But keep in mind, drones are not just flying. Drones can also roll on the ground. They can also stick to the side of a building. They can also float in a river. They can also dive underwater, jump onto a building, and I've seen them jump onto 2-story buildings, climb a tree, and attach themselves like parasites to the sides of trains, ships, and airplanes. So future drones, lots of them are going to have multiple capabilities built into them. So Peter Diamandis, the founder of the X Prize Foundation, says that we're heading from a world where we have 2 billion people connected to the internet in 2010 to 7 billion in 2020. And what he's talking about is these solar-powered drones. This is one that's a company that's owned by Google called Titan, and Facebook has one called Ascenta. And their plan is to, with these solar-powered drones, they fly right at the edge of the atmosphere, above all the weather patterns, above traffic patterns, and they're intended to provide Wi-Fi for the other 3 billion people on Earth. The only one of them that's flown so far is the Zephyr by Airbus. So these things are coming too. The future is ours to write. I'm going to leave you with a couple of quick predictions here. That the next major league sport is actually going to be video games. Oh, I hear this groaning coming from the audience. In South Korea, they're actually attracting many as 45,000 people to game tournaments. And the guys who are winning these tournaments are like sports celebrities, and walking down the streets, they're very recognizable. Our most valuable land in the future is going to be our landfills. That's where we put all of our valuable natural resources. So I think we're going to invent robotic earthworms that go in there and mine out all of the resources in our landfills. The Internet of Things will virtually eliminate theft. We can tag anything of any value. Our cryptocurrencies are going to create the first trillionaires. There's over 3,300 cryptocurrencies in existence, and 59 of them now have a market cap of over $1 million. Driverless cars are going to change transportation more dramatically than the invention of the automobile itself. By 2030, the average person will own printed clothing, will live in a printed house, have packages delivered by drones, own more than one robot, work as a freelancer, frequently use driverless cars, and will be capable of accomplishing 10 times what the average person today can. We're entering into a period of unprecedented opportunity. Why is this so important? Because humanity is going to change more in the next 20 years than in all human history. At the same time, our risk factors are going to increase exponentially. Lots of things can go wrong, and it's up to us to make sure that they don't. And our children's children, who haven't even been born yet, are counting on you. They're counting on the people in this room right here. As Steve Jobs says, right now is one of those moments that you are influencing the future. But a lot of times our best efforts just look a lot like this. Pretty much just like that. Thomas Edison says opportunities missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Isn't that the truth? So any of you that want more information about our Visionarium project or what we do at the DaVinci Institute, you can sign up for a free newsletter. And I will give you a heads up. My new book will be coming out later this year called Epiphany Z. And I thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you.
He heard it said we're on our way to 50 billion connected devices. I can tell you that my 5 children own a majority of those devices, I think. So it was really exciting to see some of those opportunities that lie ahead.